You did it this morning. You probably don't even remember. You were standing in the kitchen, or maybe in the shower, and a quiet voice started running. Not out loud, not even in full sentences. Just a low, constant murmur inside your skull, narrating the moment, questioning it, arguing with it. You didn't ask it to start, it just did. And if you stopped right now and paid attention, you'd realize it hasn't stopped since you woke up. That voice is the strangest thing about you, and scientists have only recently started to understand what it actually is. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is not a quirk or a flaw or a side effect of modern stress. That inner voice is one of the oldest, most powerful tools your species ever developed. And for most of human history, it was the difference between living and dying. Here is what no one tells you. The human brain did not evolve to be quiet. Silence for your ancestors was not peace. It was emptiness. And emptiness, in a world full of predators and rivals and unpredictable weather and invisible disease, was dangerous. The brain that stayed loud, that kept rehearsing and narrating and questioning, was the brain that caught the problem before it became a catastrophe. That voice you hear, it has been running in the human mind for at least 100,000 years. And it saved you more times than you will ever know. Psychologist Charles Fernyhough at Durham University has spent decades studying what he calls the inner voice. His research found that somewhere between 70 and 80% of people report a near constant stream of inner verbal thought throughout the day. Not images, not feelings, words, sentences, arguments. That voice, Fernyhough argues, is not a monologue. It is a dialogue. And the distinction matters more than it sounds. You are not just talking to yourself, you are talking with yourself. There is a version of you inside your own head that disagrees, pushes back, offers the counter-argument. You have had conversations in your head with people who were not in the room. You have rehearsed what you were going to say before you said it. You have argued your own side against your own doubt. That is not madness. That is evolution doing exactly what it was designed to do. But why words? Why did this inner narration become verbal at all? Anthropologist Robin Dunbar at Oxford University spent years studying the relationship between language, brain size, and social group complexity. His work suggested something that still feels strange to say out loud. Language may not have evolved primarily for communicating with other people. It may have evolved primarily for thinking, for organizing the chaos of experience into something the brain could hold, examine, and act on. Consider what your ancestors actually needed to survive. They lived in groups of between 50 and 150 people, all with competing needs, shifting alliances, complex social hierarchies, and the constant threat of being cast out. To navigate that world, they needed to model other minds. They needed to ask inside their own heads, what does this person want? What are they thinking? What will they do if I say this? That kind of thinking requires language. You cannot run a detailed social simulation without words to anchor it. The inner voice, Dunbar believes, was the brain rehearsing social reality before facing it. Think about the last time you were nervous before a difficult conversation. You ran it in your head first. You imagined the other person's response. You adjusted your approach. You planned a version of events that hadn't happened yet. You were doing something your ancestors did every single day. Not for meetings or phone calls, but for survival, for negotiating access to food, for managing the alpha's temper, for deciding whether the stranger at the edge of camp was a friend or a threat. That rehearsal function is ancient, and it is still running in you right now. But the inner voice does something else too, something researchers like Alain Morin at Mount Royal University have been studying for years. It regulates you. When you are angry, the voice steps in. When you are scared, it narrates the fear back to you, which, counterintuitively, reduces it. When you are grieving, it finds the words for the shapeless weight. The act of putting an experience into language, even private internal language, changes how the brain processes that experience. It moves it from raw sensation, from the limbic system's raw animal panic, into the prefrontal cortex's domain of meaning and narrative. Your ancestors did not have therapists. They did not have journals. They had the voice. That ongoing internal monologue was the first technology humans ever developed for emotional regulation. Not fire, not tools. This. There is a particular kind of inner speech that researchers now study with special attention. They call it self-distancing. It is the moment when you switch from first person to second or third person inside your own head. Instead of thinking, I am terrified, I don't know what to do, you think, okay, you've been here before. You know how to handle this. That small shift, from I to you, has been shown in studies by Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan to reduce anxiety, improve performance under pressure, and help people make clearer decisions. You have done this. In the moments before something hard, something that required everything you had, you talk to yourself as if you were someone else. As if some wiser, calmer version of you stepped in and narrated a path through. That was not a coping trick. That was your brain using a tool refined over 100,000 years of high-stakes moments. Your ancestor, standing at the mouth of a cave with a spear, facing something that could kill them, heard that same voice. Calm, focused, cutting through the fear, telling them what to do next. The inner voice is also why your species can lie. Not to other people, to itself. Every other animal on Earth lives entirely in the present. They react to what is in front of them. They cannot construct a false narrative and hold it alongside a true one. But your brain, with its constant verbal stream, can run two versions of events simultaneously. The version you tell others, and the version you know is true. This is not always a moral failing. It was sometimes a survival mechanism. The ability to hold a story lightly, to revise it, to present one version while privately calculating another, made you extraordinarily flexible in complex social environments. But it also made you capable of something else: regret, guilt, rumination. The inner voice does not only rehearse the future, it replays the past. And for many people, that replay becomes a loop. The same moment again and again. The same failure, the same embarrassment, the same wrong thing said at the wrong time. Researchers now understand that this is the inner voice misfiring. It evolved to help you learn from danger. But in a world where the danger is social, and where the cost of a social mistake feels existential, the loop can run indefinitely. It keeps looking for the lesson that would make it safe to stop. And sometimes it never finds one. This is why the inner voice is the most human thing about you. It is also the most painful. What makes this stranger still is that children do not start with an inner voice. They start with an outer one. Watch a young child play alone and they narrate everything aloud. This is mine. This goes here. Now the bear is sad. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky observed this a century ago and realized something profound. The child is thinking out loud. They are using social language originally developed to communicate with others, and turning it inward, building it into a private tool. Around age 7, the narration goes underground. It does not stop. It moves inside. And from that moment forward, the outer world of language and the inner world of thought become the same thing. You did not learn to think in words. You learned to take the words you were given and make them into thought. Every concept you hold, every plan you build, every fear you carry is structured in the language you grew up speaking, which means the language you speak does not just describe your inner world. It shapes it. It limits it. It makes some thoughts easy and others nearly impossible. Your ancestors spoke languages that no longer exist. They had inner voices structured in sounds and rhythms we will never hear. But they had them. They ran the same rehearsals, the same replays, the same internal arguments. They soothed themselves in the dark with the same murmur. They coached themselves through the same impossible moments. That is not metaphor. That is documented in their behavior, in the evidence left by toolmaking and cooperative hunting and care for the injured and burial of the dead. All of those things require the kind of planning and social modeling that only happens in a mind that can talk to itself. You are the heir to 100,000 years of that conversation. So the next time you catch the voice mid-sentence, somewhere between the kitchen and the door, somewhere between the fear and the decision, don't try to silence it. Listen. It is doing what it has always done. It is trying to keep you alive in a world it was built for. doing its best to make sense of a world it wasn't. Tonight, when the noise of the day finally fades and you lie in the dark waiting for sleep, the voice will still be running. Soft, persistent, talking you through whatever comes next. It has been doing that for you every night of your life, just as it did for every human who came before you. It is the oldest thing about you, and it has never once stopped trying to help.